I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And today, Dan and I are going to do some more Spider-Man speculation. Dan, if memory serves, we did a video not too long ago about the notion of Spider-Man being... of Sony Spider-Man being grandfathered into the Marvel Universe, right?
I think we did. We talked a little bit about that when we did our video talking about the Spider-Man universe and things like that.
Yeah.
And when the Amazing Spider-Man came out, there was some talk of that because it was almost Oscorp Tower in the Avengers movie, and they both came out the same year and stuff.
Right.
So we have talked a little bit about this stuff before on camera. I think
it seemed like a couple months ago there was a lot of talk like this might be happening, that the and like right after Amazing Spider-Man 2, and especially after we had gotten news about Sinister Six, but then maybe that wasn't going to happen, and like things got really weird, messed up with Sony, and now the Sony hack. For a while there, it looked like maybe Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was going to get roped into Marvel. Now we've learned a lot of things that make it seem like that is a near impossibility. Actually, not even near, just impossible. A couple major things. First of all, the big thing I keep hearing, and I don't know what you've read, Dan, and I don't know how true this is. The big thing I've been hearing is that Andrew Garfield has didn't show up for some meeting and he's done. They've dropped him. He's just completely done.
Yeah, what I heard was he didn't get along too well with the Sony execs because they were doing a lot of higher up pressure on script things for the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they invited him to some dinner gathering where he was supposed to speak, and Garfield just snubbed him and didn't show up.
Yeah.
Because he was so displeased with the experience of working on the second movie in that regard. So, I think Sony's had a lot of trouble having a working relationship with the directors and the screenwriters of these movies. If they can't even get a working relationship with like the main actor, I think things are not looking good for that series continuing, I don't think.
No, not at all. So the big question I wanted to pose and what I really want to talk about is twofold. One, do you want to see another reboot and it go with Marvel? What would that look like if we had it? And two, what are the odds that Sony and Marvel come to some sort of a consensus? Let's start there. Marvel's big thing, they have a laundry list of things that they have to have in order to accept some kind of a deal with Sony. It's not, we have to own the character, we're willing to share it, but to a certain degree. At least this is what I've been reading. But they've got some demands, and Sony seems like they don't want to go all the way with some of this. But I'm wondering if they might end up having to in order to even have anything remotely like a successful Spider-Man universe. So Marvel wants the thing to be completely rebooted, recast, completely rebooted, not that continuity at all whatsoever. They want a more... for the solo Spider-Man films, they want a more superhero-driven direction and less relationship-driven, and that in the background. What do you think of all of that? Do you think it would be better or worse than what we had before? Can you stand that rebooted again right away?
Right. I mean, the devil's always in the details, obviously, like when the movie comes out. It would obviously depend on how they did it, but conceptually, my thoughts are, for me, Spider-Man kind of needs to have some sort of relationship element to it to be Spider-Man. I don't know, like, that's such a big part of those stories. You don't necessarily need to have a romance be the center of it, but like interpersonal relationships are the foundation of what Spider-Man is about. Like, I want Peter Parker to have deep and interesting relationships with the supporting cast of the movie. I feel like that's one of the things that Marvel films are weaker at a lot of the time. Like, look at the Thor and Jane relationship in the Thor movies. Their relationship isn't very interesting. I feel like it's very superficial. And I feel like Sony finally got the relationship right in the last movie. So throwing that all out would not be something that I'd immediately be on board with conceptually, I suppose. But if they did it right, I mean, I don't know. It would depend. it would be weird to like have Peter Parker just be a superhero and fight supervillains and not be the primary focus of the movie. You know what I mean? Because that's not what makes Spider-Man interesting for me.
Yeah, I wonder if the quote isn't a little bit less about, oh, we need more excitement in these movies, and more about we just want to avoid melodrama, forced drama, that kind of thing. I personally, I don't want to read too much into let's put the relationship in the background. Not too much, especially because, as you said, it doesn't have to be romantic. I think you're right that some of those movies with Marvel, that's been the weaker point. On the other hand, not always, right? I mean, yeah,
I like the Pepper and Tony relationship a lot.
Me too. Yeah.
Peggy Carter and Steve relationship just got a lot more interesting with the Agent Carter show that came out. I like their relationship a lot. So they can do it well. It just depends on who's writing it, who's working on it, I guess.
But I also think, well, and then the question just becomes, do they put somebody on it that understands Spider-Man enough? Right? And Spider-Man, you and I, this is not always a popular opinion, but you and I think Spider-Man is kind of in a weird place in the comics right now. It is possible that that Marvel Studios could make a Spider-Man movie that doesn't understand Spider-Man in the way that you and I think is appropriate. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, now may be a really weird time to try to reboot. On the other hand, it is difficult. Well, I want to say two things. First of all, it is difficult for me not to immediately go, Marvel's been batting 1,000 lately. I didn't care for Thor: The Dark World very much, but beyond that, most of what they've done lately, I've really, really, really liked. It's hard for me. It's hard for me not to say, put Spider-Man in Kevin Feige's hands. It's probably in better hands than it was at Sony. It's hard for me not to think that way. The other thing is, maybe they haven't been brilliant at romantic relationships. Maybe they don't have a lot of people on board who are brilliant at writing female characters, although the Russos did really great things with Black Widow and Winter Soldier. But
that's true. And Peggy as well.
Would you not agree that lately they have excelled at friendships?
To some degree. I think the Bucky and Cap relationship, if I was to make any criticism of the Winter Soldier movie, I felt like their friendship wasn't established in the way that I would have liked in the first Avenger. I think they did cool stuff given, the relationship they had.
Yeah.
But
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Falcon.
Yeah, Falcon was cool. But
also his relationship with Steve Rogers, I thought, was really strong. But yeah, I'm with you with Bucky, but that's more of a Cap 1 problem, and like you said. And I honestly, when I saw Winter Soldier, I kept thinking, and even before it came out, I kept thinking, I think a lot of people saw First Avenger and might have missed Bucky entirely, and would go into this movie and be like, who the heck is this guy? I don't even remember that. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not in the movie. Obviously he is, but he's forgettable because he's potentially forgettable if you don't know comics and you don't care about the character in the first place, because he's dropped out pretty darn quickly. Right. Yeah, but anyway, okay, I'm with you. You liked Amazing Spider-Man 2 better than a lot of people did. And I did also. How sad are you to see this probably not continue and get a third movie? Frankly, with what they set up at the end of that, I think it's rough that we're not going to see that pay off probably.
I think so too. I mean, I was one of the few people that was excited to see this, the spin-off movies like the Sinister Six and stuff like that. I think all of the casting that they had for those movies was inspired. I love Garfield. I love Emma Stone. I think Chris Cooper would have made an amazing Norman Osborn in the Green Goblin suit eventually. I think I even like Dane DeHaan a lot as Harry Osborn. I like Franco in the Raimi movies, but I thought Dane DeHaan made it his own, and he played the part really well. I enjoyed his performance.
He's really tortured.
For me, it's mainly kind of just losing the tone in the cast of that we established at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like I feel like they finally got the tone of Spider-Man right with that movie. Say what you want about like the individual, scenes and writing in the movie and the pacing and all that stuff, but the tone in terms of like Spider-Man's jokey and it's a bright color palette and he's got basically the comic book suit. I think they went a little bit more towards the Raimi sensibilities, I suppose. Just that's because what Spider-Man's tone is in the comics. But I think we finally were at a place where we had a Spider-Man actor that I really liked. I liked the rest of the cast. I liked the tone. I liked the costume. I just don't think they did anything that would warrant them having to reboot. Like, it wasn't like Spider-Man 3 where they kind of ruined some of the characters and killed people off, you know?
It's quite salvageable. And I think a lot of the problems with that movie are, as you said, more pacing issues and more, maybe you went a little too far, or very much too far in a lot of places with comedy and things like that. But is there anything that's just so ridiculously hokey that you can't come back from it? Let's look at the flip of this, because I can see this going in two different directions. You got a lady at Sony who really, a major bigwig, I can't remember her name, who really, really, really resists what Marvel wants to do with Spider-Man and resists losing this continuity, or losing, full control over it. My question to you is, I think she doesn't like the direction Marvel would take it and the demands they would make. My question to you is, what is more likely, that they cave and they give Marvel everything they want, or that they recast it and they do 3 anyway? And B, if that happens, how much money do they lose, or can it be salvaged?
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because people aren't talking about the relationship between Avi Arad and Kevin Feige either. And they used to be co-producers on the early Marvel films, and they had a falling out and refused to work with each other. And one of the terms that Marvel is saying is Avi Arad cannot be involved to any degree with the production of a Spider-Man movie that we are involved with. They're saying you need to kick Avi out of the building if you want us to, take this movie on. And Spider-Man is the last Marvel property that Avi Arad has been able to hang on to, and he loves it, and he really likes producing the movies. Avi Arad isn't my favorite guy in the world, but you can't deny his passion for the movies for whatever reason he has for them. Maybe it's just the fact that they make him a lot of money. But he really likes working on them.
He's sort of got passion, but at the same, you're right, but I don't know really where his priorities are, and I don't know that he understands storytelling. In fact, I'm positive when I listen to him talk about Daredevil.
I don't think he's the greatest guy in the world, but it's a power struggle at that point.
It is.
Two big producers.
Is he not producing X-Men at all anymore? Has he been kicked out of the building on X-Men?
I don't think so.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll look that up. I didn't think that was the... Wow, okay, all right. Because I know his name was on those early on.
Not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't produce the X-Men movies anymore.
Dan, I can't imagine with the backlash. And I mean, I guess I'm saying, what we hear from fans all the time and stuff. I mean, just like we said earlier, people just hate Amazing Spider-Man 2. I can't imagine that recasting it and making a third one that it's successful. I just can't imagine it. I don't know what they would have to do to get confidence from the fans back. Because the thing is, a lot of people were just ultra lukewarm on Amazing Spider-Man 1. Honestly, I still say, I said this before it came out, I said this when it was announced, that people liked the Raimi film so much and were looking forward to seeing it salvaged. Most people agree with me. The original Spider-Man 3, not very good. Spider-Man 3, not that good. But a lot of people thought it could be salvaged, and a lot of people liked Tobey Maguire and whatever. But I guess I'm just saying that I think it was too early. Back then, I said it's too early. Give it a few more years. I honestly think that a lot of this is just about time. I still kind of think that. I still think that
fatigue with the movies coming out so often.
I don't know that it's fatigue so much as people are. Maybe that's the right word for it, but I think it's that people are a lot more critical because they take it for granted now. We get these all the time. When the first Raimi movie came out. The fact that it looked good, that we bought the web swinging, that was bright and cheerful, covered a multitude of sins, And now we get that again for Amazing Spider-Man 2, and there's all this backlash. Why? People are a great deal more critical, partly because they're not getting what they remember from their childhood or from a few years ago, whatever their age is. You know what I mean? Part of it is that,
right.
But I think part of it too is just we take this stuff for granted now. We get 5-6 superhero movies a year now. We expect perfection or something really, really close to perfection in a lot of ways. And some franchises, if you just stick with the director and the people that were involved in the first place, they're less critical because they love those people. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of that.
Right.
I think with this, it's people didn't have confidence about it in the first place. And like I said, Amazing Spider-Man, it was a lukewarm response. A lot of people were like, eh. And this movie, it was, okay, you tried Raimi, and we hated it because you weren't Raimi. I don't think an Amazing Spider-Man 3 would work at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a sequel to Amazing Spider-Man 2, especially since in the Sony hack, there was a lot of talk about adapting Craven's Last Hunt, and that's one of my favorite Spider-Man stories of all time.
Mine too, yep.
I would really love to see that adapted to some degree eventually. But at the same time, Amazing Spider-Man came out the same year. This speaks to your point about us expecting perfection. Marvel gave us near perfection with 2 movies this summer that they released, and that summer that it was released, and Amazing Spider-Man went up against both of them. And
good point.
A lot of people comparing them, it's just seeing them weeks, maybe a month apart. It's tough to stand up to Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy because they were so good.
Yeah. And Days of Future Past too. I mean, isn't that kind of like?
Yeah, I forgot about these.
Isn't that kind of ironic too? Because you had the X-Men movies right around the same time as the Spider-Man movies. That's kind of interesting. I mean, we have one of the best movies in a franchise that was still going and didn't have to be rebooted. And then we got this movie that a lot of people just didn't want. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think people were panning Amazing Spider-Man 2 before they saw it? Because I wasn't hearing that. I think people were kind of like just sort of, cautiously optimistic about it. And then they saw it and they hated it. I wonder what that's about.
I mean, there's always the sect of people, like you said, that just really love the Raimi movies so much that no matter what they put out, if it's not that, they're not going to like it, right? Yeah. So that was most of the panning that I heard about beforehand, which you would expect. But yeah, I thought a lot of people were cautiously optimistic about it. I don't know. When I think about Spider-Man going to Marvel,
yeah,
a couple of thoughts jump into my mind that could be potential concerns. 2 of them were already brought up before. The losing Garfield, which is kind of inevitable at this point. Garfield's, I think, is perfect. He's my favorite Spider-Man on screen so far. I really like him. It's going to be really sad to lose him. But if we have to, given that, the other concern, like you said, is possibly having a relationship in the background. It would all depend on how they do it. My big concern, though, is that if Spider-Man goes to Marvel, he's going to be an Avenger, and he's going to be shoehorned into those movies. He's going to be on a team, and I don't like that.
I don't either.
I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man being a team player. I don't think he belongs there. I like Spider-Man by himself. Those kind of stories. In best case scenario, if Marvel, if I was the head of Marvel and didn't have, money was no object, and I could just do whatever I wanted, and I wasn't trying to maximize the profit of making a Spider-Man thing, I would give Spider-Man a Netflix TV show in the same realm as the Daredevil, the Luke Cage, the Iron Fist guys, because he's street level New York City. He's friends with all those guys. He knows all of them in the comics, and it would make so much sense to have a ongoing TV show narrative kind of thing with Spider-Man, because the early best runs of the character were all told like that. It was all episodic kind of stuff with an ongoing story.
Yeah, I think the problem with that, and I'm with you, that in a perfect world that would be wonderful. I think if Marvel were to talk to you directly, they would say, well, the problem is money. We can't make Spider-Man look good on a TV budget. I don't know how true that is,
right.
But it seems like, the web swinging and stuff, there's a lot of CGI, there's a lot of wire work involved with certain kinds of scenes. You can make Daredevil work because it's so street level and gritty in the first place. You almost want a Daredevil thing that looks really low budget. That's one of the things that I'm so excited about that show, is everything we're seeing. It's like, and that's why I hope that they do a Punisher one at some point, because that needs to be on TV. I'm with you. A Spider-Man show, yeah, focus on the relationship stuff, and then give me you make it like the old Hulk TV show and give me like a token fun fight at the end or in the middle or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I don't know. let me throw out a big positive for the potential of Spider-Man going to Marvel. First of all,
oh yeah, for sure.
First of all, I don't with losing if we're losing Garfield, I want Marvel to get it.
I that would be best case scenario.
I'm going to say that I don't think it's going to work in Sony's hands now. I don't think people are going to trust it. I think that they're going to be a lot less confident in their script writing and stuff because of the lack of confidence in the consumers. I think that's going to hurt it. That killed Ninja Turtles. I think it's going to hurt Spider-Man too. Well, I don't know that Ninja Turtles wouldn't have also been just as bad even without that. But I mean, like it made that script really wonky, and I'm just afraid that sort of thing would maybe happen with Spider-Man. I am going to say that one of the big positives about it going to Marvel, I'm with you about the Avenger thing, but I think one of the big positives is a Rogues Gallery. I want to see the guys that we have already get to fight some of those characters. I want to see Spider-Man. I want to see major Spider-Man villains in Avengers movies. Why not? You know, that kind of thing's exciting. I want to see Daredevil from the TV show, if it's good, brought into a Spider-Man movie and get a Spider-Man Daredevil team up. You know, there's a huge, vast amount of possibilities if you do this, and there's going to be some cons, but I feel like right now the pros to Marvel getting that character really outweigh them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be awesome if after you do Civil War with Captain America, if they get the rights to all the Spider-Man characters, do Dark Reign, but better, when Norman Osborn basically takes over the Marvel Universe. How cool would that be? Well, that would be amazing.
And I just feel like a lot of those characters are way too interesting to put in other places, and it also, let's face it, it would round things out a lot, right? There are certain things that are under the Spider-Man umbrella that the Marvel Universe really that it's really weird to see the Marvel Universe without if you know your stuff, if you know Marvel Comics, and they've done a really good job with Marvel Studios of building a universe without that stuff and making it feel fleshed out and lived in. Especially now that we're getting like Carter and things like that. Like no, it feels like the real Marvel Universe. They got a lot of praise early on for taking characters that a lot of people just didn't really care about, even if they'd heard of them, and it almost the B team when you take out Spider-Man and X-Men. Wow, you guys built a universe around Iron Man and Captain America. That's amazing, right? It doesn't feel that amazing now, especially because there's a lot of kids that grew up with it now, you know. But like,
right.
I still feel weird about not having Galactus, you know, like there's certain things that
Fantastic Four. That's the one thing I think this Marvel Universe is missing, especially since we're going so cosmic. Like I can deal with not having the Spider-Man stuff because the scope is so much bigger than what he usually deals with in his stories.
But there's certain characters that I think you just kind of want to see in there getting to deal with things, right? Like sure. I kind of miss the Daily Bugle. There are pieces of it that.
Daily Bugle is something that I miss a lot, and. I just don't think they're able to get any. They're never going to be able to get anyone better than J.K. Simmons for that role. And if Marvel gets it, just recast him, dude. Bring him back.
He's getting a little old for it now, but you're right.
J. Jonah Jameson's a pretty old guy all the time. He's like Aunt May. He's perpetually like 60.
I feel like if they get Spider-Man, they will do it a lot straighter, but what era will it be, right? That's the big question, is like, will it look more, are they going to do what they've done with so much stuff and make it more Ultimate-y? I don't know. Who knows? But like, I just feel like we won't have to worry about this whole, let's make everything look darker crap. I think we're done with that. Rebooting and starting over.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel made a movie with Batroc the Leaper in it. So we're going to be able to see some of the Spider-Man villains in their goofy glory, I think. Like,
I think so, too.
They're obviously going to redesign the villains so they don't look like, Craven the Hunter in his classic design or anything like that. It won't be that silly, but I think we'll get something closer to the way that they look in the comics, which is exciting. We won't get the mech rhino suit that we got in Amazing Spider-Man 2, I don't think.
I'm going to suggest something that I just thought of this, Dan.
Sure.
You know how there was a lot of talk that and again, we can't completely count out the possibility of more Spider-Man movies at Sony because they haven't come up with a deal and they may never. I just want to put that footnote in there that I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen. I feel like Sony's crazy if they don't ultimately let that happen. I'm thinking, but anyway, so I just felt like I had to put that caveat in there for a minute. But anyway, for a while there, they were talking about maybe they'll eventually do Flash Thompson Venom. And Flash Thompson Venom is a thing that you can't tell me Marvel Studios wouldn't do 6 times better. Or at least really nail, because they get the war stuff, right? Like, that's a thing that I would really love to see. I'd love to see Captain America dealing with Flash Thompson Venom. I say if Spider-Man goes to Marvel, or if they make a deal and they share it, start with it. Don't even do the villain Venom. Just start with it, or do him in one movie and then go to Flash Thompson Venom. I can't believe I'm saying that because I love Venom as a villain, but like I don't know, do Carnage and skip it and let Venom be a superhero from the beginning. I love Flash Thompson, and he can be an Avenger. I'm okay with that.
I think it would be cool if he was a Guardian like he is in the comics and they go to the Venom homeworld in a movie.
Of course, that would just be wonderful, yeah. So I'm just saying, the possibilities here are endless. And I think I'm more excited about supporting characters even than I am with Spider-Man to a certain degree, just because, let's face it, we have gotten some good Spider-Man on screen. And, so I have gotten to see that. This is not like, here's a character we haven't gotten to see yet, and realized well. Like Fantastic Four, I would be excited to see brought at Marvel, because we've still never seen them quite realized right.
Yeah, I think they got the look and the tone of FF right, but the writing was just kind of bad, and it seems like with this new movie, they're shying away from the tone of what FF is completely and trying to go with a more realistic route with it.
Yep.
I mean, maybe the characterization will be good, and similar to how they are in the comics, but it's not going to be the FF movie that I would ideally love to see. And I'm not even the biggest FF fan. I like the characters, but I'm not like a super fan of the Fantastic Four.
I'm not either.
Spider-Man is where it's at for me.
Also, with FF, we need Silver Surfer in the Marvel universe if we're gonna do Guardians and stuff like that. We gotta eventually have that. There has been also a little bit of talk. I guess I'll throw this in there real quick. There's also been a little bit of talk lately about maybe eventually Marvel getting X-Men. I don't want that.
I don't think that'll happen anytime soon.
I don't either. I don't want that. Well, first of all, they just did a soft reboot and it was super successful and everybody freaking loved that movie. Why would Fox ever let that go?
Yeah, the last 2 movies in that continuity I loved. I loved The Wolverine and I loved Days of Future Past.
Well, I'm going to say the last 3 because I love First Class.
I forgot about First Class.
I love First Class.
I thought all 3 of those movies were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't... And X-Men is a property that can exist on its own. It has enough characters to feel like a fully realized world.
And as I've always said, it almost feels really separate anyway. I mean, like Marvel lately has been working really, really hard to make them make more sense together, and sometimes, I mean, I've appreciated it, but sometimes the seams are showing a little bit. There are places where you're like, the more we try to finally put Avengers and X-Men together and do stuff together, the more it feels weird that they're even in the same universe. There's a little bit of that. So yeah, keep those separate, because the whole, I guess I've said this before, but the whole everybody hates mutants thing, when you've got a bunch of other people with superpowers that everybody really loves, never gelled for me.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even within the comic books. You're right.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Because you just see a guy swinging from webs in the sky above you. How do you make that distinction immediately? Like, oh, he was born. Like, you have no idea how Spider-Man got his powers. He could be a mutant.
That's a good point. Well, yeah. Why does it? And why does it matter how we got them? You're supposed to be scared of what you don't understand. Well, that guy's got powers, and he can crawl on walls, and I can't. It's kind of scary. Now, to be fair, people hate Spider-Man, but I don't think it's because he has superpowers. Yeah, it's for a
different reason.
Yeah. So
you would think that Mark Waid did a House of M mini when it was flipped, like the world loved mutants and they ruled the world, and Spider-Man pretended to be a mutant in that, and it was really interesting, and found out he wasn't eventually. It was really good. Mark Waid did cool things with it. But getting back to the Spider-Man and Marvel thing, it's going to be interesting to see how they introduce Spider-Man if he ends up being introduced here, because the idea on the table apparently is he's going to be established and they don't want to do Origin again, which is smart. If they did Origin again...
Yeah.
I just think that would be a terrible decision to do origin again. So they're going to go with a pre-established Spider-Man. I don't know what age they're going to go with. All the casting rumors seems like they're trying to cast a younger person, which makes sense because most people think of Spider-Man as a teenage kid. I think you can do adult Spider-Man and make it work, but most people like the teenage version better, so that's fine. I like the teenage version. I like the adult.
Let me also suggest that anything Marvel does now, because they've got this spanning continuity and they're making $1 bazillion with every movie no matter what it is, and Ant-Man got like 27, 36 like million views on its trailer, and it's Ant-Man. Like anything they do now is gonna make money until they make the one that everybody pans, that just hasn't really happened yet. Where was I going with all that? So like when they cast anybody that's a major superhero, they should go as young as humanly possible so that they can keep them for as long as they can. If they knew how well this had gone, I guarantee you they would have cast Iron Man younger.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and there's a lot of talk
see anyone else play him. But yeah, that's a good point. Long-term business-wise,
there's a lot of talk right now that
I think that's something else. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, just real quick. There's a lot of talk right now that when Robert Downey leaves, that they're gonna take that kid from Iron Man 3 and give him the suit.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
That kid, he was 13 in that movie. He'll be 19 or 20 after Civil War, which is the last movie that Robert Downey is contracted for. And if they gave him the suit and they made him the new Iron Man, and some people are saying like, oh, maybe they'll like recast Tony Stark younger. That doesn't make any sense at all unless they do some kind of weird Power Ranger de-aging thing. I imagine he's the same character, and that's who he passes. That's who Iron Man passes the torch to. Well, he's super young. They can keep him for a really long time. You can't tell me they're not thinking that right now with a lot of new casting.
Well, Kevin Feige has said that when Robert Downey leaves, they will James Bond it and recast someone else as Iron Man. He's gone on record and said that. So I think that's the plan, or at least it was. I haven't read anything about the kid. If they do Kid Tony, that would be hilarious.
Might be a rumor thing. I'm just saying.
Hates Kid Tony.
I don't know how you do it. How do you, in this continuity, go? And now Tony Stark is a 19-year-old man.
Oh. Yeah, it'd be really strange.
Okay.
I just think it would be rather strange for Spider-Man to show up after like New York was half destroyed and they never knew about him before.
That's where
it's going to be interesting to see how they figure all that stuff out.
That's where I'm at. I don't know how he's introduced. Now, let me suggest this. Would it be possible to not do origin but still show like a brand new Spider-Man? What I mean is he's kind of learned the whole great power, great responsibility thing, but he's only gone out like 3 times and just nobody's heard of him yet. Like we could make it super early and we could do his origin and like
that's true.
Maybe what they'll do, or maybe what they could do is just do his origin in the credits or do it in a couple minutes, or maybe do the whole swinging around. I'm Spider-Man, and I'm talking about how I became Spider-Man. that kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They did that with the Incredible Hulk. They kind of summed up his origin at the beginning of the credits of that movie. So they've done it before. I think it could work.
Yeah, especially because they summed up his origin, but he was still brand new. Like he hadn't hulked out yet, but they did his origin, right? They could do the same thing with Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. He had hulked out, but it was just like they did the homage thing to the TV show where he was in that like machine that leans back and stuff like that.
Okay. But like it wasn't public knowledge or anything.
Yeah, like the military knew, and like there was glimpses of him, but it wasn't like the Hulk was fighting Abomination in the street yet.
Maybe what they could do is they could say Spider-Man's only been on one mission. He's fought the Lizard, and it was in the sewer, and nobody knew about it.
That would be cool.
Something like that.
That would be really cool. Yeah, and
he didn't try to make everybody in the city a lizard. Like he just fought him, and then like nobody knew about it because they were all going to become lizards. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to be very interested to see how the business deal ends up being hashed out, because the deal on the table is Sony still retains all money for merchandising. So like all the like toys and stuff that are sold, Sony makes all the money from that, but Marvel gets to creatively control the process of making the movie, and they get a cut of they share the box office profits with Sony.
Explain to me.
From Marvel's perspective, if they just wait and let Sony flounder and fail and eventually get Spider-Man back, they could stand to make more money. Like, they're not in any sort of position where they're struggling to make money at this point. Like, you know, all the merchandising for all their other characters, like, Spider-Man is obviously, he commands more, you know, profit than those other characters because he's freaking Spider-Man. But, I mean, you're losing a whole chunk of the profits that potentially you could make if you owned the character outright and the rights just went back to them after Sony fails and doesn't make a movie for a while. I don't know that Sony would ever let that happen, but it's a strategic thing for Marvel to consider, right?
Well, yeah, a couple things. First of all, I'm glad you said that, Dan. Sony has everything to lose, and Marvel has everything to gain, right? Sony could make a movie, and it flopped this time. I mean, the last one made enough money to keep going, but not what they were hoping for, and people hated it. It is possible they could make a Spider-Man movie that simply doesn't make enough money. I think that is possible now. Maybe. I mean, it being Spider-Man, people will still go. I think they could really shoot themselves in the foot. It just seems to me like they would be crazy right now not to just let Marvel do whatever they want and sit back and take the money with merchandising. I don't know why. I mean, maybe they will. I think the deal is they would lose a certain amount of money because they wouldn't be getting all the movie making money too. But better that than have a movie that flops and then kind of wish you could make that deal with Marvel anyway, right? The other thing is, Marvel is already making merchandising money on Spider-Man, tons of it, because they own it for everything that's not a movie. Like Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, the Ultimate Spider-Man stuff is the big merchandising stuff right now. Everything has the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show logo all over it.
Yeah, and they're selling tons of it, I'm sure.
And everything.
Yep. And then of course they own the comic side. So I don't know, man. Like I kind of feel like you're right. All Marvel has to do is sit back and either eventually get it or make a deal with Sony. But like, yeah, of course they're gonna want Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man. But I don't see why they would have any reason to make any compromise whatsoever.
Yeah. I think that's the position they're in. Either Sony takes the deal on the table or it's done. I mean, think about, you know, Sony going into that agreement too, and then something happens and they have a falling out, and Marvel has to effectively remove Spider-Man from their universe too. Like that's a position where Sony would still retain the movie making rights, but they have an agreement with Marvel to, you know, have Spider-Man in their movies that, you know, they won't legally pursue them for using the character, and they share profits and stuff. What if Sony isn't happy with the direction and they're like, oh, we're pulling out, and Marvel's like, oh, well, we introduce an entire section of the Marvel Universe into our universe, and now we have to revoke it? I don't know the specifics of the deal. If it would be, there would probably be contractual stuff involved where Marvel would get Spider-Man for a certain amount of movies, and you know, they would be able to plan ahead as to how many movies they wanted Spider-Man to be in, and Sony would have to agree to that ahead of time. But after that period is over and Sony feels confident enough, it's been long enough where they're like, oh, maybe we can take it back ourselves and stand to make more money. There's all of those sort of agreement details that you have to consider as well from Marvel's side.
If Spider-Man goes to Marvel and I mean, just everything they're doing is working right now from a money-making standpoint, regardless of what you think of it. Like, everything is working. It's all successful. Guardians was some of the biggest take last year. It was Guardians of the Galaxy. That's 8 shades of insane. If Sony, if Spider-Man is even half successful as Guardians, everything. You put those words all together in a sentence.
That's insane.
If Spider-Man does even half as well as Guardians, and they have a contract with Sony where they make movies for a certain amount of years, and then they have to reevaluate it because Sony retains the rights, so they might be able to take it back from Marvel. And then Sony tries to reboot Spider-Man without Marvel, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is still going on and is in like phase 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever. That will be the funniest thing in the universe, because it won't work. I can't wait to see that insanity. There's no way, Dan. They won't make a contract like that. I don't know what it would be exactly, but I would imagine some kind of ongoing thing. Like maybe it would just have to be like an all or nothing sort of thing. But yeah, Sony, you guys, just sit back and take the money you can from it and figure out some other way to recoup some of those costs from not making a movie, because what you have is not sustainable right now.
Yeah, and like Avi Arad, with that Sony hack, it was revealed that how Avi Arad is involved with making a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. That's happening.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Sony is Avi Arad and Sony are producing a Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
And he's running
Sony
Pac-Man.
hack revealed there was
and Avi Arad is doing Pac-Man. And I saw the pilot
he's trying to get Mario.
Oh, no.
The Sony hack revealed that he was in negotiations with Miyamoto. There's pictures of them together shaking hands and stuff. So, I mean, Sony might be poising themselves to do a crossover with all the big video game mascots, and maybe that's the next thing they're going to focus on. Who knows?
If they do that and it works and they get a decent scriptwriter at all, they don't need Spider-Man. They'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
If it works.
So that's... If those negotiations go through, and Nintendo's very protective of Mario, I don't see them giving it to Avi Arad just because of who he is. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd say don't do that. And I wish Nintendo would let Mario be made into movies or a TV show, but give it to the right person. I watched 15 minutes of the first episode of that Pac-Man show and I couldn't get through it.
Really?
Yeah.
It was that bad?
It was rough. It was rough.
I'm not surprised.
One of the big things I couldn't get past, you live in and maybe this is just a Pac-Man thing and it's been in other things and it's not just that show's fault, but there's other things. I'm not going to sit here and review this show, but I just want to kind of say this because it's funny. Maybe I should make that video. I don't know, but then I have to watch the rest of it. They live in a place called Pac World.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is Packy, and like nobody talks about that. Like he's the only person with like Pac in his name, but they live in a place called Pac World. I can't get my mind around that. I don't know.
The world literally revolves around him.
Literally, and nobody notices it. And he's just like this normal dude. And then there's like a prophecy, and it's that kind of thing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's great. Bad. Only yellow ghosts. I guess I'm reviewing that. Reviewing it now. Only yellow Pac-Men people can eat the ghosts, right? And the ghosts are in like this alternate universe. You have to like push a button in a maze to let them out, and nobody knows that they're still around. But Pac-Man has seen them, and nobody believes him, but he believes in the ghosts. And then he's the one who accidentally lets them out, and it's all his fault, right? So then like only yellow ones can eat them, and like the big evil head ghost guy thought that all the Pac-Man, I don't know why we're talking about this, that all the yellow Pac-Man were gone, and I was like, oh no, so like he's the most important thing in the universe just because he happens to be yellow, and then he does this horrible thing that actually gets the ball rolling. It's really bad.
Man, there must be mad racial tension between Pac-Man and the rest of Pac-World.
That's hilarious! I didn't think of that. Dan, final thoughts about this. What do you want ultimately to see happen? What is the best case scenario?
Best case scenario
sorry. With Spider-Man, not Pac-Man.
Yeah. Best case scenario with Pac-Man is to make a good video game again. But
leave it alone.
The Spider-Man base case scenario for me would be get rid of Orsi and Kurtzman, keep Mark Webb, keep the cast, and do an Amazing Spider-Man 3 that adapts Craven's Last Hunt. That would be ideal situation for me. That is probably not going to happen. So given the circumstances we know of, I think given the two choices between the two studios, have Sony keep it or have Marvel take it over, I think I would want Marvel to take it. I think they would, at this point, do a better job with it. The people at Marvel have mishandled Spider-Man pretty consistently in the comics. That's the only, for a number of years now, and Joe Quesada is Chief Creative Officer of Marvel. He's heavily involved with the movies. I don't think he gets Spider-Man at all. But Kevin Feige is the guy that calls the shots on that, all that stuff ultimately. So, and Drew Goddard, the guy that's showrunning the Daredevil show, was originally involved with the Sinister Six movie. So he's a talented guy, and he is interested at least in working on the Spider-Man character. There's rumors that he was going to direct and write the movie, that if Marvel eventually got the rights, there's already been rumored talk about him doing that. So if Marvel gets it and they can get big talent on it, that's good. I mean, that would be great. I think Marvel has a better eye for talent than Sony does. I mean,
that's a great
Orsi
point.
and Kurtzman are not the people I would have hired, and Marvel, at least, even when they hire, they make a movie that I didn't, love, like Thor: The Dark World. They got a guy who directed Game of Thrones episodes, one of the most critically acclaimed shows of recent memory, to direct that movie, and it's in his wheelhouse, medieval fantasy kind of stuff. So they at least have an eye for talent and what people's sensibilities are. So I think overall we'd probably get a better Spider-Man movie with them at this point in time, given the current circumstances, than if Sony were to keep it. So, I think it would probably be best for Marvel to get it at this point.
Yeah, Dan, I just want to echo everything you just said. I don't think I could begin to say that any better. What Marvel does not do that Sony, I guess, has a tendency to do is they don't pick talent based on popularity. They don't look at here are movies that made $1 bazillion and these were the people that wrote them. Is there always a correlation? Is there always necessarily a correlation? They said who is talented. They look at the work, not at the dollar amounts, and that's the reason that I think they've chosen a lot of the actors they've picked, and I think it's a lot of the reason they picked the writers and directors they've picked.
It's interesting because Sony picked Mark Webb, who's a guy that had made music videos and one movie before he made Amazing Spider-Man. I think that was a Marvel-esque kind of director choice.
Sure.
Look at the Russos. Those were people that directed, episodes of sitcoms, I think it was. I'm not sure if that was specifically the genre of TV that they worked on, but they weren't involved at all with action blockbuster movies, and Marvel was like, these are two talented people, we're going to hire them to make this big budget Captain America movie, and they made one of my favorite superhero movies of all time.
Yep, and now they just wrote their own ticket, and they'll be doing that kind of work probably for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, there's even talk
that kind of level
Joss
work.
Whedon.
Yeah,
exactly. And there's talk at this point, if Joss Whedon decides not to do Avengers 3, that they're going to be the people that take over, and I think it's going to be in good hands if they do.
That would be just wonderful, wouldn't it? Yeah. I wish the Russos would handle more of their TV stuff.
That would be awesome. I would love if they they were showrunners for the Carter Show.
Yeah. Well, and again, I don't know how long that's going to go, but I'd like to see them come in and do and direct some S.H.I.E.L.D. because that show sometimes looks too TV, and with that guy, especially with the second part of Carter, that was I still say it's screen worthy. Big screen worthy. I was watching that going, good Lord, just take this pilot, put it in the movie theater. You would make $700 million.
Right, exactly.
Okay, 4 or 5, but you'd do half as well as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Sony's capable of making interesting and risky choices. Yeah. I just think that they got scared after the first Amazing Spider-Man movie because it didn't make as much money as they expected that to. The first movie didn't make as much money as they expected it to, and the second movie, by virtue of the people being lukewarm on the first movie, even though I'm someone that liked that movie a lot, I thought it was pretty good. Their box office receipts were down, and they got scared, and now they don't know what to do. It's all bottom line for them is money. For Marvel, they're corporations. For Marvel, it's always the bottom line. But I think they're willing to take more risks because their risks have been rewarded by the marketplace.
That's exactly right, and also they have room to try stuff now. They've been rewarded, as you said, so much for the stuff they've done in the past that they have the wiggle room now. They got the net. They can do crazy stuff. Yeah. They can throw millions of dollars at a project and it tank, and they'll be okay. You know what I mean? They can they can chop off an arm and it'll grow back right now. That's where
they're like Hydra.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they're at. It'll be all right. This is the last question I want to ask you before we go. Do you think that my theory about Spider-Man needed a few years to get people's palates wet for it again, it would hold true for Marvel. Do you think if Marvel gets the rights, they should wait a couple of years, or do you think they should just do it right away? Throw Spider-Man in one of the Avengers movies, or do a solo movie right away?
I think you introduce them like they were. The talk is maybe introducing them in Civil War, like they're doing with Black Panther. And I think you do it there, have him like cameo. You don't need him to be an integral part of the movie like Black Panther will probably be.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man's role in Civil War is revealing his identity to the world, and you don't do that the first time you introduce Spider-Man. That doesn't make any sort of sense.
Also, it would be redundant because they did the same, because that's what they did with Tony Stark.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you have Spider-Man cameo there, and then, maybe wait a couple years, put a Spider-Man movie in production, really get a great script, work on it, draft it, get multiple writers to come in and work on it and make a movie, and you advertise the crap out of, which they do with a lot of their movies. They put Marvel's, whatever the thing is, like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Agent Carter, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in front of it. You advertise, like, this is from the studio that brought you Captain America Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers, now Spider-Man. And I think people would be really excited about it. Even if you put it out right away, and if you advertise it like that, I think people would get excited. But I'm with you. If you wait a little while, I think that might garner a little bit more excitement from people.
Well, and not just excitement, but I think also, like they might, I don't know, they might trust it a little bit more. It won't look like a rush job. It's like, we got to save this, we got to fix it right away. Now, I imagine that they would probably put it out right away, but I'm with you. I think that people are going to trust it a lot more from them. It's ironic because when Sony rebooted Spider-Man, the big joke was Sony's Spider-Man, like Sony was in front of it. The irony is you put Marvel there. It'd be really funny if they have the rights to it together, and the contract they write is that you have to put Sony with Marvel over the name. Marvel and Sony present Spider-Man. I think the Sony label would immediately really hurt it, or at least make people wonder more about it. So. You don't want that. Marvel and Sony's, it's not like it'll never work like Disney Pixar, right? Like,
yeah, you don't want like the trailer to have like a preface by Avi Arad, like, I'm here to present the most popular character ever.
Next movie, we're going to have Venom, who is the most popular character ever.
So I think it's all about messaging and marketing at that point.
Yeah.
Which I guess is for everything.
Sure.
You could just say the way you market it is the way it'll go. But
you know what I want to see? Just I know we are nailing this joke to the ground, but I think it's really funny. You said from the studio that brought you Winter Soldier. I want to see a Spider-Man movie advertised as from the studio that brought you Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, they're going to attach that to like Ant-Man and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
the
trailer for that comes out.
The world turned upside down last year, right? And I'm not complaining, because that movie was wonderful, and I love that you can take something super obscure, put it out like that. It's totally fresh for everyone. It doesn't even matter that it has source material. Everybody's like, oh, cool, a brand new thing I've never heard of. It's so neat that Marvel's doing that. Ant-Man's going to have a very similar kind of thing, because, yeah, you and I have heard of Ant-Man even more than we've heard of Guardians of the Galaxy, but your general public's like, what? Oh, okay, is this going to be a movie about a superhero that steals picnic baskets? What are we talking about? But yeah, like, just imagine Guardians of the Galaxy does that much better than a Spider-Man movie, and we have to use Guardians of the Galaxy to sell a Spider-Man movie. That would be amazing. It's bizarre. We were already making fun of, well before Guardians came out, that we were going to see Rocket Raccoon before we ever saw Wonder Woman on screen. And now we're going to get... I'm not saying that's how they'll advertise it, but they could.
Right.
So interesting. Anyway, so who knows what's going to happen? It could be that it's in limbo for years, too. We haven't talked about that possibility, but it could get stuck in limbo, because if Sony doesn't budge, and then they just wait a long time until they finally, like, okay, we have to finally make a movie, or we're going to lose the rights. I could see them sitting on it for 2 or 3 years, Dan. I don't know how long they're allowed to sit on it, but I could see them sit on it.
Yeah, I don't know what their specific deal is, but that would be really, really unfortunate for me, just because I love Spider-Man so much. I want to see like a movie every couple summers with Spider-Man, because He's my favorite. But I would be satiated with seeing, I love all the other Marvel characters almost as much as I love Spider-Man. I love the Hulk, I love Thor, I love Daredevil, and we're getting all those. So, if I have to wait a while to get good Spider-Man while I'm also having good Hulk, good Thor, good Daredevil,
especially
good X-Men,
Daredevil.
I mean, all of the other Marvel characters I like, I could be satiated. I could be fine. I could wait a little.
If the Daredevil show is great, you and I are spoiled, right? Because I gotta tell you, I'm in a place right now where I think I almost like Daredevil more than Spider-Man. Them's probably fighting words, but I'm kind of there right now. I think I like that character more. And not just like lately, but just like, I don't know, sensibilities. I think maybe I like Daredevil a smidge more than Spider-Man today.
I mean,
right
that's
now,
fair. They're
this
neck
very
and neck
moment
for me. Like, this is Spider-Man and this is Daredevil for me. Like, they're very close. I love Daredevil. He's my second favorite superhero. He's awesome. And I'm with you. Current comic book wise, there is no comparison between how great Daredevil is and how good Spider-Man is.
No, there's
because
not.
Spider-Man is not good. And Daredevil is the best thing being published.
I mean, I can't say I'm not enjoying some things about Spider-Verse, but yeah. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. Dan, did you have anything else you wanted to mention before we go? I feel like we've thoroughly tackled this.
I don't think so. I'm just curious to see what other people think.
Me too.
I would imagine most of the viewers are probably going to say, come to the same conclusion we did, that Marvel should ultimately get it. But I'd like to see an argument for Sony keeping it, because I haven't really seen anyone else make an argument like that. It seems like kind of a no-brainer, but maybe someone has some sort of perspective where they're like, oh no, it would be better for Sony to keep it. So I definitely want to hear from you guys and see what you guys think.
Well, folks, thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate it. And Dan and I will be with you again very soon with more enjoyable, fun videos. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.